Captain Jake Morrison stood at the window of the research station, watching Jupiter's red storm swirl below. The coffee in his hand had gone cold hours ago, but he didn't notice. Something felt wrong today, though he couldn't say what. The station orbited Jupiter quietly, far from Earth and its busy space lanes. 43 people called this place home, all scientists and support crew studying the gas giant's mysteries. It was peaceful work, the kind Jake preferred after his years in the military. "Captain," came a voice behind him. Dr. Lisa Grant walked up, holding a data pad. Her face looked worried. "We're picking up something strange on the long-range sensors." Jake turned from the window. Lisa was their best scientist, and she didn't worry about small things. "What kind of strange?" "A ship, but not like anything in our databases." She handed him the pad. "It's big, maybe twice the size of our station. The hull seems to be made of materials we don't recognize." Jake studied the readings. The ship was still far away, but moving toward them at a steady pace. "Could it be from one of the outer colonies?" "No, sir. The design is completely alien. I mean that literally." Lisa's voice was quiet. "I think we're looking at first contact." The words hung in the air between them. First contact. Every human had wondered when it would happen, but most thought it would be near Earth, not way out, here by Jupiter. "How long until they reach us?" Jake asked. "At their current speed, about 6 hours. Jake nodded and handed back the pad. "Get everyone to their stations. Send a message to Earth Command." "And Lisa?" He looked at her seriously. "Make sure our defensive systems are ready just in case." As Lisa hurried away, Jake felt that strange feeling again. Something was definitely wrong, but he still couldn't place it. 6 hours later, the alien ship hung in space near their station. It was beautiful in a strange way, with flowing curves instead of the straight lines humans preferred. The hull seemed to change color as Jake watched, shifting from silver to deep blue. The communication came as a surprise. Not radio waves or data bursts, but somehow directly into their minds. Jake felt the alien thoughts like whispers in his head. "Greetings, inhabitants of this station. We are explorers from distant stars. We wish to meet with your leaders in peace." Jake grabbed his head as the voice faded. Around the command center, others were doing the same thing. The aliens had spoken directly into their minds. "Did everyone hear that?" Jake asked. Nods all around. Dr. Grant looked pale. "They're telepathic. They can speak directly to our thoughts." Jake tried to stay calm, but his military training was screaming warnings. Any species that could get inside your head was dangerous. "Open a standard radio channel," he ordered. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Jupiter Research Station. We received your message. What are your intentions?" The reply came both through the radio and in their minds at the same time. The voice was smooth, almost musical. "I am Zektar, scout of the Etherian people. We have traveled far to meet your species. May we come aboard your station to speak properly?" Jake looked around at his crew. They were scared, but trying to hide it. He was scared too, but as captain, he had to make the hard choices. "You may. Send a small group, 3 individuals maximum. We'll meet in conference room 2. "Agreed. We will arrive shortly." Jake turned to his security chief, Commander Pete Williams. Pete was a big man with steady hands and a good heart. "I want security teams on every level, but keep them hidden. If this goes bad, I don't want to start a war by accident." "Yes, sir. What about weapons?" "Everyone armed, but nothing visible. We're being careful, not hostile." An hour later, Jake sat at the conference table with Dr. Grant and Commander Williams. The aliens had arrived in a small ship that seemed to flow like liquid metal. Now 3 figures stood at the other end of the table. Zektar was tall and thin, with pale skin that seemed to glow softly. His eyes were larger than human eyes and completely black. When he looked at Jake, it felt like he was looking through him, not at him. The other 2 aliens stayed quiet, but Jake could feel them watching everything. Their presence made his skin crawl, though he tried not to show it. "Your species is young," Zektar said, his voice coming from his mouth this time instead of directly into their minds. We have watched your growth with interest. You've been watching us? Dr. Grant asked, from a distance. We do not interfere with developing species. Zektar's black eyes shifted to her, then back to Jake. But you have reached the stars now. It is time for proper contact. Jake felt something probing at the edges of his mind, like fingers trying to open a locked door. The feeling made him angry, though he wasn't sure why. What do you want from us? He asked. Zektar smiled, showing teeth that were too white and too sharp. Nothing harmful. We simply wish to understand your people better. Perhaps we can be friends. The probing feeling got stronger. Jake's head started to hurt. Across the table, he could see Dr. Grant rubbing her temples. Commander Williams looked uncomfortable too. Understanding goes both ways, Jake said, fighting to keep his voice steady. What can you tell us about your people? We are old, Zektar replied. We have seen many worlds, met many species. Most are happy to join the greater community of minds. The way he said community of minds made Jake's skin crawl. The probing in his head was getting painful now, like someone trying to crack open his skull. Captain, Dr. Grant whispered. Something's wrong. I can feel them in my head. Zektar's smile got wider. Do not be afraid, this is natural. Soon you will understand. Jake stood up suddenly, his chair scraping against the floor. The anger he'd been fighting burst free. Get out of our heads. Now. Zektar looked surprised, then interested. Fascinating. Your resistance is stronger than expected. The probing stopped, but Jake could still feel the alien's attention on him, like a weight. Something told him this was just the beginning. Perhaps, Zektar said softly, we should continue this conversation tomorrow, give you time to adjust to our presence. As the aliens left, Jake caught Zektar staring at him with those black eyes. The look was hungry, like a predator studying prey. After they were gone, Jake turned to his crew. I want guards on that docking bay, and get me a direct line to Earth Command. Something tells me we're going to need help. Outside the window, the alien ship waited in the darkness, beautiful and terrible. Jake Morrison couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he felt those black alien eyes watching him. He walked the halls of the station at 3 a.m, checking on his crew and trying to shake the feeling that something bad was coming. The aliens had returned that morning, just as Zektar promised. They wanted to continue their talks about friendship and understanding. Jake didn't trust them, but he also couldn't start a war over feelings and hunches. Now he sat in the conference room again, with Dr. Grant and Commander Williams beside him. The 3 aliens sat across the table, looking calm and patient. Too patient, Jake thought, like cats waiting for mice to come out of hiding. Your species interests us greatly, Zektar said. His voice was smooth, but Jake caught something hungry underneath it. We have met many races in our travels, but humans are different. Different how? Dr. Grant asked. Your minds are complex. Most species think in simple patterns, easy to understand, easy to communicate with. Zektar's black eyes fixed on Jake. But humans think in layers. It makes proper communication difficult. Jake felt that probing sensation again, stronger than yesterday, like fingers trying to pry open a locked box in his skull. He gritted his teeth and pushed back against it. Maybe that's because you're being rude, Jake said. Stop trying to get inside our heads without permission. Zektar looked genuinely surprised. You can feel our touch? Remarkable. Most species never notice until the connection is complete. Connection? Commander Williams leaned forward. What kind of connection? A joining of minds. It allows perfect understanding between our peoples. Zektar's smile showed those sharp teeth again. Once connected, there are no secrets, no misunderstandings, only peace. The probing got stronger. Jake's head started to pound. Across the table, he saw Dr. Grant grab her forehead. Williams looked sick. Stop it, Jake growled. I cannot stop now, Zektar said. His voice had changed, becoming deeper and more commanding. The process has begun. Do not fight it. Fighting only makes it painful. Jake felt something crack in his mind, like a wall breaking. Suddenly, Zektar wasn't just in the room with him. He was inside Jake's head, digging through his thoughts like files in a cabinet. But instead of finding what he expected, Zektar found chaos. Jake's mind wasn't organized like other species. His thoughts bounced around like pinballs. Right now he was thinking about the alien invasion, but also about the coffee he'd had that morning, and a joke his friend Pete had told him last week, and his dead father's advice about never trusting anyone who smiled too much. Zektar pushed deeper, looking for the simple core consciousness that every other species had. Instead, he found more chaos. Jake's mind held not just his own thoughts, but pieces of everyone he'd ever met. His mother's voice telling him to be careful, his drill sergeant screaming about attention to detail, his ex-wife's laugh, the scared face of an enemy soldier he'd killed in the war. And under all of that, Zektar found something he'd never encountered before. A burning anger that never went away. Not just Jake's anger, but the rage of every human who'd ever lived. The fury of a species that had clawed its way up from caves and refused to bow down to anyone. Zektar tried to take control, the way he had with 1,000 other minds, but Jake's consciousness fought back. Not in an organized way, but like a wild animal caught in a trap, biting and clawing and refusing to submit. The alien found himself trapped in Jake's memories. He experienced the human's first day of school, terrified and excited. He felt Jake's heartbreak when his father died. He lived through Jake's first kiss, his wedding day, the birth of his daughter. But also the darker things. The night terrors from the war. The guilt over friends who didn't come home. The bitter divorce when his marriage fell apart. And through it all, Jake kept thinking, not just about what was happening, but about everything at once. He was reliving his daughter's first steps while simultaneously planning how to fight the aliens, while also wondering if he'd remembered to feed his cat, while reviewing military tactics, while thinking about a movie he'd seen last week about alien invasions. Zektar had never encountered a mind that could hold so many contradictory thoughts at the same time. Most species thought in straight lines. Humans thought in spirals and tangles and impossible knots. The alien tried to pull back, but Jake's consciousness grabbed onto him, not on purpose. Jake didn't even know how to do that. But his mind was so chaotic that it created a kind of mental quicksand. The harder Zektar struggled to escape, the deeper he sank. Now Zektar was experiencing not just Jake's memories, but his emotions too. The alien felt human love, which was nothing like Etherian bonding. He felt human fear, which was mixed with determination instead of submission. He felt human humor, which used pain and absurdity to make sense of an impossible world. Worst of all, he felt human empathy. Jake's mind automatically tried to understand what Zektar was feeling, even while fighting him. The human was concerned about hurting his invader. It was insane. Zektar began to convulse. His carefully controlled telepathic abilities were overloading. He'd touched minds across the galaxy, but never one like this. Jake's consciousness was like trying to drink from a fire hose of pure chaos. "Zektar!" one of the other aliens shouted. They rushed to his side as he collapsed, his pale skin turning even whiter. Jake snapped back to awareness as the mental connection broke. His head felt like someone had been hitting it with a hammer. Dr. Grant and Commander Williams looked just as bad. "What did you do to him?" one of the other aliens demanded. Jake looked down at Zektar, who was shaking on the floor. The alien's black eyes were rolled back, showing white underneath. "I didn't do anything," Jake said honestly. "He was in my head. I just thought." The aliens lifted their leader and carried him toward the door. But before they left, Zektar grabbed Jake's arm with a trembling hand. "Your mind," he whispered. "It's not like the others. Not like any others. What are you?" Jake pulled his arm free. "Human," he said simply. After the aliens left, the three humans sat in silence for a long time. Finally, Dr. Grant spoke. "What just happened?" Jake rubbed his aching head. "I think we just found out why no one's conquered Earth yet." Outside, the alien ship waited in the darkness. But now Jake wondered if they were the ones being studied, or if somehow they'd just turned the tables. Something told him they were about to find out. Dr. Amy Rodriguez had never treated an alien before. She stood over Zektar's still form in the medical bay, completely lost. The alien's body was similar to a human's, but wrong in subtle ways. His heart beat too fast, his blood was silver instead of red, and his brain scans showed patterns she'd never seen. His vital signs keep changing, she told Captain Morrison. I don't know if he's dying or just different. Jake nodded, but he wasn't really listening. Something strange was happening in his head. Ever since the mental connection broke, he'd been getting flashes of images that weren't his own memories. Alien cities under purple skies, ships made of living metal, worlds where entire populations moved like one giant mind. Captain? Dr. Rodriguez waved a hand in front of his face. Are you all right? Jake blinked and focused on her. Yeah, just tired. Keep monitoring him. Let me know if anything changes. He left the medical bay and walked toward his office, but the alien images kept coming. Now he saw vast fleets of Etherian ships, each one bigger than Earth's largest cities. He saw planets where humans lived in cages, their minds controlled by telepathic masters. He saw species that had forgotten how to think for themselves. Jake stopped walking. These weren't random images, they were memories, Zektar's memories. Captain Morrison, to the bridge, came Commander Williams's voice over the intercom. We have a priority message from Earth. On the bridge, Admiral Chris Parker's face filled the main screen. He looked worried and tired. Jake, what the hell is going on out there? Your report about first contact has everyone from the president to the janitors asking questions. It's complicated, sir. The aliens aren't exactly friendly. Explain. Jake told him about the telepathic probes and what happened to Zektar. As he spoke, more alien memories flashed through his mind. He saw the Etherian homeworld, where billions of minds were linked in perfect harmony. No crime, no war, no individual thought. Just collective peace. So this alien tried to read your mind and it backfired? Admiral Parker asked. Yes, sir. But I think it created some kind of connection between us. I'm seeing his memories. Parker leaned forward. What kind of memories? Jake hesitated. The images in his head were getting clearer. He saw the truth about the Etherian Empire. They didn't conquer worlds with weapons. They conquered them with minds. Every species they met eventually joined their collective consciousness, giving up individual thought for the safety of the hive. Mind. They're not explorers, sir. They're collectors. They find new species and add them to their empire by taking over their minds. And they tried to do that to humans? Yes, sir. But it didn't work. Human minds are too chaotic for them to control. On the screen, Admiral Parker looked thoughtful. That's either very good news or very bad news. I think it's both, sir. Down in the medical bay, Zektar's eyes opened. Dr. Rodriguez rushed to his side, but the alien pushed her away and sat up. His pale skin looked even whiter than before, and his hands shook. Where am I? He asked. You're in our medical facility, Dr. Rodriguez said carefully. You collapsed during the meeting. We've been trying to help you. Zektar stood up slowly, testing his balance. The mental probe had changed him. For the first time in his long life, his thoughts felt scattered. Pieces of Jake Morrison's consciousness were mixed with his own. He kept thinking about things that didn't matter. The taste of coffee, the sound of rain, the way humans laughed when they were nervous. I need to contact my ship, he said. I'll have to clear that with the captain. Zektar looked at her with those black eyes. But instead of the cold intelligence from before, Dr. Rodriguez saw something new. Confusion, maybe even fear. You don't understand, Zektar said quietly. What happened in that room changes everything. Your species. You're not like the others. We can't control you. Is that bad? Zektar was quiet for a long moment. In his mind, he could still feel Jake's presence. The human's thoughts were like background noise he couldn't turn off. Right now, Jake was worried about his crew and angry about the deception and thinking about a sandwich he wanted for lunch, all at the same time. For my people? Yes. Very bad. Zektar looked at his hands, which were still shaking. We have built an empire on the ability to join minds with other species, to guide them toward peace and order. But humans, your minds reject joining, they fight back. Dr. Rodriguez activated her communicator. Captain Morrison to Medical Bay. Jake arrived a few minutes later, and as soon as he saw Zektar, both of them winced. The mental connection was still there, weaker but real. Jake could feel the alien's confusion and growing panic. You're awake, Jake said. Unfortunately, Zektar studied Jake's face. The connection between us is still active. I can feel your thoughts. Yeah, I noticed. I've been seeing your memories too. Jake crossed his arms. Want to explain why your people have been enslaving entire worlds? Zektar flinched. We don't enslave, we unite, we bring peace to chaotic minds. By taking away their ability to choose? Choice leads to conflict. Individual thought creates war and suffering. But even as he said it, Zektar wasn't sure he believed it anymore. Jake's memories had shown him humans at their worst. War, cruelty, hatred. But also at their best. Love, sacrifice, the willingness to die for strangers. Maybe conflict is worth it, Jake said. Maybe the right to think your own thoughts is more important than peace. Through their mental link, Zektar felt Jake's absolute certainty about this. The human would rather die than give up his mental freedom. It was insane and admirable at the same time. My people will not see it that way, Zektar said. When they learn that humans cannot be controlled, they will see you as a threat to everything we've built. What does that mean? Zektar's face was grim. It means they will try to destroy you before you can spread your mental chaos to other species. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. How long do we have? I was supposed to report back in 3 days. When I don't, they will send more ships to investigate. How many more ships? Zektar closed his eyes, accessing memories of the Etherian fleet. Through their connection, Jake saw what was coming. Hundreds of ships, weapons that could crack planets, an army that had never known defeat because they'd never faced an enemy they couldn't control. All of them, Zektar whispered. They will send all of them. Jake felt the alien's fear mixing with his own. But underneath the fear, he felt something else. The same stubborn anger that had protected his mind from the probe. Humans had faced extinction before and survived. They'd do it again. Then I guess we better get ready, Jake said. He activated his communicator. All senior staff to the conference room. Emergency meeting in 10 minutes. As Jake left to prepare for war, Zektar sat alone in the medical bay. For the first time, in centuries, he didn't know what was right anymore. The connection with Jake had changed him, filled his ordered mind with human chaos. But maybe, he thought, a little chaos wasn't such a bad thing. Outside the station, space looked peaceful and empty. But Zektar knew that wouldn't last much longer. General Tom Bradley stared at the message from Jupiter Station for the 3rd time. First contact. Telepathic aliens. An invasion fleet coming to destroy humanity. Part of him wanted to dismiss it as science fiction, but Jake Morrison wasn't the type to make things up. How many ships are we talking about? Bradley asked over the quantum communication link. Jake's face on the screen looked tired. Behind him stood the alien called Zektar, who had agreed to help them understand the threat. Show him, Jake said to the alien. Zektar stepped forward. Even through the screen, Bradley could see the creature's unnatural black eyes. When the alien spoke, his voice was flat and emotionless. The Etherian battle fleet contains over 300 ships. Each one carries weapons that can destroy cities. The largest ships can crack planets in half. Bradley felt his stomach drop. Earth's entire defense fleet had maybe 50 ships, and most of those were patrol vessels, not warships. What do they want? Bradley asked. To eliminate humanity before we can influence other species, Jake answered. Our minds are immune to their control. That makes us dangerous to their empire. Bradley rubbed his forehead. In his 40 years of military service, he'd never faced anything like this. How long do we have? Days, maybe a week, Zektar said. High Etherian Velthis commands the fleet personally. She will not show mercy. After the communication ended, Bradley sat alone in his office staring at Earth through the window. Billions of people going about their lives unaware that extinction was coming from the stars. How do you prepare for a war against gods? On Jupiter Station, Jake gathered his senior staff in the conference room. The mood was grim. Everyone knew. They were probably going to die, but they also knew they had to try. The quantum communicator is our most important asset, Jake told them. We need to stay in contact with Earth as long as possible. Dr. Grant, what can you tell us about their technology? Lisa Grant looked pale but determined. Based on Zektar's information, their weapons use some kind of psychic energy. They don't just destroy matter. They disrupt the mental patterns that hold matter together. That's impossible, Commander Williams said. Zektar spoke from the corner where he stood apart from the humans. Your science doesn't account for consciousness as a fundamental force. We have learned to use the mind as a weapon. Can we defend against it? Jake asked. No, Zektar said simply. No species has ever resisted Etherian weapons. But then, no species has ever resisted Etherian mental control either. Dr. Grant leaned forward. What if that's connected? What if our mental immunity gives us some protection against their weapons? Too? Zektar looked surprised. Through his connection with Jake, he felt the human's sudden hope. I had not considered that possibility. We need to test it, Jake said. But first, we need to warn every human settlement. If we're going to fight, we fight together. Over the next 2 days, the news spread throughout human space. The colonies on Mars and the mining stations in the asteroid belt, the research outposts and the trading ships. Everyone who could carry a weapon was told to prepare for war. But Jake knew weapons wouldn't be enough. The mental connection with Zektar was growing stronger, and through it he could see the true scope of the Etherian Empire. Thousands of worlds, billions of beings, all thinking the same thoughts. All wanting the same things. All moving with perfect coordination. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. You're troubled, Zektar said. They were alone in Jake's quarters, studying star charts of the approaching fleet. I'm trying to understand how to fight an enemy that moves like one giant organism, Jake replied. You don't, Zektar said quietly. That's why we always win. Individual minds can't compete with collective thought. Jake looked at him. But you're not part of that collective right now, are you? The connection with me has changed you. Zektar was quiet for a long moment. Yes, I can feel their thoughts. In the distance, but they are muted. Your chaotic mind has contaminated mine. I think thoughts that are only mine now. Is that bad? I don't know. For 3,000 years I have known my place in the greater mind. I had purpose, direction, peace. Zektar looked at his hands. Now I have doubt, and fear, and something else I don't understand. What? Hope. I hope that humanity survives. I hope that other species learn they can resist. I hope that my people can change. Zektar met Jake's eyes. These are not Etherian thoughts. They are human thoughts, and they are mine now too. Jake felt a strange warmth through their mental link. Maybe that's how we win, not by fighting better, but by being more human. Their conversation was interrupted by an alarm. Commander Williams's voice came over the intercom. Captain to the bridge. Long-range sensors are picking up multiple contacts approaching the system. On the bridge, the main screen showed space filled with dots of light, hundreds of them, moving in perfect formation toward the solar system. Time to arrival? Jake asked. 18 hours, Williams replied. Jake activated the quantum communicator. Jupiter Station to Earth Defense Command. The fleet has arrived. Repeat, the alien fleet has arrived. General Bradley's voice came back immediately. Copy that, Jupiter Station. All Earth forces are moving to intercept. Good luck out there. Jake looked around at his crew. They were scared but ready. Behind him, Zektar stared at the screen showing his own people coming to destroy his new friends. "What are our orders, Captain?" Dr. Grant asked. Jake thought about everything that made humans human. Their chaos, their stubbornness, their refusal to give up even when defeat was certain. Their ability to love and hate and hope all at the same time. "We do what humans do best," he said. "We survive." On the screen, the Etherian fleet grew larger. At its center was a ship bigger than anything humans had ever built. Aboard that ship, High Etherian Velthus felt the loss of Zektar's mind from the collective. She had assumed he was dead, but now she sensed something worse. He was still alive, but changed, contaminated by human thoughts. It was exactly what she had feared. The fleet increased its speed. There could be no delay, no mercy. Humanity had to be destroyed before their mental chaos could spread to other species and destroy the perfect order of the Empire. But as the ships approached Earth's solar system, Velthus felt something she had not experienced in centuries. A flutter of uncertainty. For the first time, the Etherians were going to war against an enemy they couldn't understand or control. The battle for humanity's survival was about to begin. The Etherian fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system. 300 ships spread across space like a metal storm cloud, each one glowing with psychic energy. At their center, the massive flagship carried High Etherian Velthus and her most powerful telepaths. Admiral Kate Sullivan watched the enemy approach from the bridge of the battleship Liberty. Earth's defense fleet looked tiny compared to the alien armada, but every human ship was ready to fight. "All vessels, this is Admiral Sullivan," she broadcast. "Today we fight for more than our lives. We fight for the right to think our own thoughts. Make every shot count." On Jupiter Station, Jake Morrison stood on the command bridge with Zektar beside him. The alien looked pale and troubled. Through their mental connection, Jake could feel Velthus reaching out across space, trying to reclaim her lost scout. "She's calling to you," Jake said. "Yes. She promises forgiveness if I return to the collective. She says my contamination can be cleansed." Zektar's voice was quiet. "Part of me wants to go back. The collective is peaceful, safe. No doubts, no fears, no difficult choices. But I've seen what humans call freedom. Messy and painful and beautiful. I don't think I can give that up now." The first battle began near Mars. Human ships attacked with missiles and energy weapons, but the Etherian vessels barely noticed the damage. Their shields were powered by the collective minds of their crews, making them nearly invincible. Then the aliens began their counterattack. Beams of pure psychic energy lashed out, and human ships simply stopped existing. Not destroyed, erased. As if they had never been there at all. "My God," Admiral Sullivan whispered, watching 3 destroyers vanish in seconds. "Fall back to Earth orbit. Prepare for final defense." But as the battle raged, something unexpected happened. The human crews weren't just dying when hit by psychic weapons. Some of them were fighting back. Their chaotic minds created interference in the alien weapon systems. Shots that should have erased entire ships instead only damaged them. Dr. Lisa. Grant watched the battle data streaming in from the fleet. "Jake, are you seeing this? The weapons aren't working at full power against us." Jake studied the readings. "Our mental immunity is protecting us somehow. Not completely, but enough to make a difference. Then we might actually have a chance." Battle moved closer to Earth. Human ships fought desperately, using their partial resistance to the psychic weapons to survive longer than any other species in Etherian history. But they were still losing. Too many alien ships, too much firepower. High Etherian Velthus felt growing frustration as the battle dragged on. Humans should have been erased in minutes, not hours. Their stubborn refusal to die properly was disrupting the perfect order of her fleet. "Enough," she decided. "I will handle this personally." She reached out with her mind, gathering the psychic power of every Etherian in the fleet. Together, they would crush the human mental defenses and end this annoyance. But when her telepathic probe touched the human fleet, she found something impossible. The humans weren't just thinking their own thoughts. They were thinking about each other, about families back on Earth, about friends fighting beside them, about strangers they would never meet, but chose to protect anyway. Their minds were connected, but not in the ordered way of the Etherian collective. Human thoughts bounced between ships in a chaotic web of emotion and determination. Love mixed with fear, hope with despair, courage with terror. It was the most beautiful and terrible thing Velthus had ever encountered. Jake felt the alien probe hit the fleet like a psychic tsunami. But instead of crushing human minds, it got caught in the web of human connection. Every thought, every emotion, every desperate hope for survival crashed into Velthus at once. "Now," Jake said to Dr. Grant, "broadcast everything." Dr. Grant activated the experimental transmitter they'd built using Zektar's knowledge. Every human thought and feeling in the fleet was amplified and sent directly into the Etherian collective mind. The effect was immediate and devastating. Thousands of Etherian minds, used to perfect order and harmony, were suddenly flooded with pure human chaos. They experienced every emotion at once: love, hate, joy, sorrow, hope, despair, all mixed together in an impossible storm of feeling. Across the alien fleet, Etherians began to collapse. Their ships stopped moving as crews struggled to cope with the mental overload. Some aliens began to think individual thoughts for the first time in their lives. High Etherian Velthus screamed as Jake's consciousness crashed into hers. She experienced his entire life in seconds: his childhood fears, his first love, the death of friends in war, the joy of his daughter's birth, the pain of divorce, the wonder of seeing Jupiter's storms. But more than that, she felt his absolutely certainty that freedom was worth any price, that the right to choose your own thoughts was more important than peace or safety or even life itself. "How?" she gasped. "How can you bear such chaos?" Jake's voice came through their mental link, calm and strong. "Because it's ours. Because we choose it. Because every messy, painful, beautiful thought belongs to us." The Etherian flagship began to drift as Velthus lost control. Around the fleet, other ships were doing the same. The collective mind was fracturing as individual Etherians discovered personal thoughts and feelings. Zektar watched from Jupiter Station, tears streaming down his pale face. "It's working. They're becoming individuals. The collective is breaking apart." Not all of it, Jake realized. Many Etherians were too afraid of chaos to embrace it, but enough were changing to cripple the fleet. Ships began to retreat as their crews argued among themselves for the first time in centuries. "Admiral Sullivan to all ships," came the broadcast. "The enemy is withdrawing. Repeat, the enemy is withdrawing." Cheers echoed across the human fleet, but Jake felt no celebration through his link with the alien commander. Velthus was broken, her perfect certainty shattered by contact with human thoughts. "I don't understand," she whispered across space. "How do you function with such disorder in your minds?" "We don't function," Jake replied gently. "We live, we feel, we choose, even when it hurts." The Etherian fleet limped away from Earth. Many ships now carrying crews that thought as individuals rather than as parts of a collective. The empire that had lasted for millennia was cracking, infected by the human idea that chaos might be better than peace if it came with freedom. Zektar remained on Jupiter Station, no longer welcome among his own people, but not quite human either. He had become something new, a bridge between two kinds of consciousness. "What happens now?" Dr. Grant asked as they watched the alien ships disappear into the distance. Jake looked out at the stars, where other species were probably receiving news of the Etherian defeat. Some would be terrified. Others would be hopeful. Now other species learn that the Etherians can be beaten, that minds don't have to be controlled to find peace. He smiled. Now the real work begins. Across the galaxy, the age of mental freedom had begun. And it all started with one human who refused to let anyone else think his thoughts for him. The universe would never be the same.